Hey, Pat, Saints had 8 sacks last week. What is challenging about the way they draw up their pressures?
Yeah, well, the challenge for when you're playing the Saints is just blocking them one-on-one. Obviously, we can focus on number 94, 91. They get after the passer, and that's where the challenge is. They're very fundamental in what they do. They have plenty of they have pressures that they utilize, but I think where they're really good is when they play coverage and they rush with 4, maybe 5. You know, the kind of the pressure in vogue this year is to either bring the nickel and the 4 rushers or bring the outside backer and the 4 rushers and, try to maybe get you into one-on-one situations. And then their very talented rushers have an opportunity to get home.
Next one, Jeff Legwell.
Pat, I asked Drew this the other day too, but in looking at the snaps, I'm curious why you think Drew has shown some efficiency in his footwork, good footwork in under center, and given he hasn't done that a lot previously in his football life.
Yeah, I mean, I think we alluded to this before with regard to quarterbacks in college careers. I mean, just look around. I mean, very few quarterbacks function under center in college. So obviously, when they come to this level, they're doing it for the first time. There's reasons for it. I believe in it, and he's actually got pretty good fundamentals under center. When you run the ball from under center, you need to throw the ball. There's play action. There's obviously dropbacks. You can move the pocket, and he's worked on it quite a bit. But I would say it's like anything. I sure wish that we would have had those 1,200 or 1,400 reps we would have had in the spring, which would have helped smooth it out quicker. But as the year is going on, he's getting better and better with it.
That's what I mean. He's shown an affinity for it. I was just curious, do you think his basketball background has helped with that, or is he just naturally taken to it? Well,
I think he's a good athlete. I think even though he doesn't have much experience with functioning or working under center, he's a good enough athlete where he can do that. Most quarterbacks that play are. And then it's just a matter of what you ask him to do from under center. Is it a 5-step drop? Is it move the pocket? Is it some form of play action? But all that takes time to smooth out and work with, and certainly his athleticism helps him with that.
Next one, Nick.
Yeah, to follow up, Pat, on the question about footwork, how much, when you're talking about a quarterback completing a deep pass, obviously there's a lot of factors that go into being successful in that facet of the game, but how much of, it is footwork that goes into that basket, and what's just been your impression of how Drew has evolved in that aspect as he's trying to become a more efficient deep ball passer?
Yeah, I think footwork is the foundation of, it goes without saying, it's the foundation of being a passer, and it depends on what type of deep ball you're throwing. Are you throwing a post off a play action? If you're just dropping back and throwing a go ball, it's, from the under center, it's 5 hitch and throw. That gives you the best chance to be – time and distance says that gives you the best chance to be accurate. And then you put air on the ball or flatten it out depending on what the coverage gives you. If you're in the shotgun, you just minus it by 2. It's 3 hitch and throw. It's just that simple. And if you can stay in that type of rhythm, you maximize your ability to complete the pass. It's just, I don't know, I'm fond of saying it's the science, but it's the science of a guy running down the field and completing it 42 to 46 yards down the field, whether he's in bump and run or off coverage. It's the time it takes to go 5 and hitch and throw. That kind of puts them all in that place where if you do it all, because it's all time and distance. And, I think that gives you the best chance to complete the pass.
That's time for a few more. Next one, Mike Kliss.
Yeah, Coach, until COVID reared its ugly head the last couple of days, the talk of the week was, getting those big blockers out in space on pulling Reisner, who I know have done before, but Garett Bolles also going from left to right. How did you come up with that? Was it a Miami thing, or is it something you think we might see more of?
Well, there were certain things that they were doing schematically where they had a lot of guys packed inside, just if we're going to talk in generalities. And so we felt like it was good to man block it and work the edges. And I think to our players' credit, they executed the schemes really well. Some teams don't allow that quite as much. They're not quite as packed in on the interior, and they're a little bit wider on the edges. And so, it changes each week. You like to say that every week you can do exactly what you did the week before if it worked. But, you face new defenses, and so there's certain things that we're going to have to take advantage of this week. But, Dalton did a nice job. Really all the linemen, whether we went right or left, did a nice job pulling. And Garett's really fond of showing his athleticism running around. He was fond of it. Now he's going to want us to throw him passes and things like that, I'm sure, at some point.
Next one, Brandon.
Coach, you've been up in the press box now for the last month or so. Vic said he liked you being up there, and we know Vic loved calling a game up there. Do you like it more or less? Is it different? How many times have you called it up there versus in the past and all that?
Yeah, I went up there. My first game up there was New England, so it's been, most of the season. And my initial reason for going up was really COVID related. A lot of the game, when you're on the sideline, I'm sitting this far from Drew, multiple minutes. And at that point, that was when the contact tracing was kind of going down to 5 minutes instead of whatever. And I just felt like it made sense. Now, the technology allows us to call it from upstairs. So I can push the button and send it right in from upstairs like you would if you were on the field. And so initially it was to stay away from the players, especially on game day when there's a lot of close contact. So that was my first thought. But then having been up there and being able to call it in, I like it. It's a quieter environment. Mike does a great job of talking with Drew, so we have a good thing between the two of us. And so I can still communicate with everybody just like I would if we're on the field. But initially it was kind of a COVID move, so to speak, to just keep as distant as I could from the players one more day.
Final one, Troy.
Coach, you guys had such a big game on the ground, 189 yards, and both Garett and Dalton talked about how they loved being physical, kind of that physical identity of that. How do you see that from linemen? That's kind of your background, that when you can get them into a rhythm, that it blossomed into something bigger. And how do you do that against the Saints, who are just nasty against the run?
Yeah, well, I'm fond of calling plays at work, and the runs were working, and it made sense in most situations to run the ball. I think most linemen, because if you the science of it, when you're pass blocking, you're kind of setting back for the most part and taking the blow, where most of the time when you run block, I don't know many offensive linemen that would prefer to pass block over run block. So that, in my mind, they're just stating the obvious. It's good. I believe in running the ball, and I believe that, if we can run the ball efficiently early, I think it helps us throughout the game. I think you need to run the ball for your team. I think that's goes without saying. There was an old coefficient that you used to go by, runs plus pass completions, because there was a ball control function in that. And if you had more than your opponent by 4 or 5 and over 48 or whatever it was, then you had a chance to win the game. That doesn't totally hold true anymore because, there's other things that affect it. But if you can run the ball and gain yards doing it, I think it's the way to go.